So this first one is a 1966 hardtop, and it actually was originally Sahara beige with a black standard interior, but now it's a 1996 T-Bird color. It's called Alpine Green, so it has a little bit of a green tint to it, but I actually had picked out the interior that I wanted to go into this car before I knew what the exterior color was going to be. So I kind of based the exterior color of this car on the interior color combination. It originally had just the black standard interior, and I really liked the pony interior, and went with this two-tone turquoise and white setup, and found the console just on online classifieds, and it was actually a red console, and you know, for a high school kid on a tight budget, I was excited to find that console for really cheap, and painted it white, and it's held up pretty well. This car was done just over 20 years ago, and so I've tried to keep it pretty well protected and out of the elements during that time. It is a 289 C code car. So C code meaning 289 two barrel for the carburetor. All right. So the engine's been gone through and had a few upgrades done to it. I put a 4-barrel carburetor on it. I liked the Autolite 4100 model for the carburation, and then there's what they call the F4B Edelbrock intake they used on some of the early Shelbys. So I found that and put it on with some open letter Cobra valve covers and some headers. Put dual exhaust on it, and a little bit of a uplifted cam for a little bit of performance. It's nothing too radical. Put a dual master cylinder in it, dual reservoir for the braking, and a aftermarket Willwood proportioning valve that's kind of down in there. I don't know if you can see that. It's adjustable. This was just a 4-wheel drum brake car, and I wanted to have better braking on it, so that was that. These wheels, to most people, would look like the factory stout steel wheels, when in fact they're actually off of a Mercury Cougar, but they have the Mustang center caps on them. And I found those for a bargain. Again, high school kid trying to make the best of a restoration that he could on a budget. So I think I bought the whole set, minus the center caps and some cruddy old tires that were on them, for 150 bucks. So that worked out well. Yeah, my dad had a paint shop, and he didn't really paint cars. It was kind of off to the side, but he painted this car. He painted a few cars over the years, and this was one of them, and so it makes it a little bit more sentimental, the fact that he did that. So anyhow, this car was done, ready to drive the night before my senior prom for high school, so that was kind of a fun moment to take it out for that high school dance. Alright, so here is a 65 fastback that I purchased largely the way that it is now about 10 years ago. I've done a few odds and ends to it. I put some torque thrust D's on it. I thought they were a great look for the car, and I did some stereo equipment and a few mechanical things. I put disc brakes on it on the front, because it was a 4-wheel drum brake car, and so the braking was not very sufficient. Converted it to a dual reservoir master cylinder, and mechanically with the engine, I've pretty much left it alone the way it was when I purchased it. I really honestly don't know how many miles are on it. Seems to run okay, not super strong, so it might need a little bit of help, but I haven't felt the need to do anything just yet to it, because I've had some okay road trips on it for several hundred miles. I've taken it on, and this car is not something that I really cared to use as a show car or anything. The paint job certainly could be better, could be of a higher quality. The person I purchased it from, I think, was more looking just to flip it, and I kind of knew that. I bought it with that in mind, that it was not a super show car, but I got it for an okay price that reflected that, and for my purposes, it's worked out quite well. A couple other things I've done to it is I put this wood rim steering wheel on it. I just like that classic look. I'm not a real big fan of the original steering wheels that these cars came with, and the gauge cluster as well. This was something that I put in here with to show the vitals on it, and the 65 gauges were real plain, real bare bones, reminiscent of the Ford Falcon, of which these cars were kind of a platform from. Let's see, and I mentioned mechanically I haven't done a whole lot, but one thing I did do, other than the disc brakes of course, was a conversion from a 3-speed automatic to a 5-speed manual. I just thought it'd be a little bit more fun to drive around running through some gears. So that was a change that I made on it. So that kind of speaks for what that car is. And I have this 66 convertible that's Night Mist Blue, and that actually is the original color, but it's not a GT, but I put the trumpets that you would see on a GT car on it because I like the look, I like the appearance of it. And I'm not a purist for the most part. I really don't care to have things perfectly original, especially when it's on cars that are not real rare, that were fairly common production models. So my goal has been to accessorize them the way that I kind of want them. But this car, I liked the color, the original color, so I've kept that. And it was actually originally a pony interior car, so of course I left that as it really would have been. I put a rally pack in, converted it to disc brakes, and this was another 5-speed conversion car. The shift lever looks like the original factory 4-speed would, with a reverse lockout T-handle, but it's got a 5-speed under there. And then I put a stereo system in it, and I've put some floating speakers on the back seat. I didn't want to cut any holes in those back panels, so I just have these floating speakers. They can come out at any time so that it didn't muck up the rear quarter interior panels. This car was drivable, but pretty rough when I first acquired it about 15 years ago. So my father-in-law and I tore it down and did some metal replacement on it. And let's see, I think we replaced the driver's side door, driver's side quarter panel, hood, valances, and a few other things with better metal. And then took it to a local shop, a guy that kind of specializes in classic vehicles, and had him do the paint job. That guy's since moved away. He was a great resource, but I was happy with the work that he did on this for the paint job. And this I've done some mild modifications, some tri-Y headers, another one of those F4B intake manifolds that I have on my hardtop. It's got a dual point distributor, which actually has been converted over to a Pertronics setup, so it eliminates those points, and it's a little bit better ignition system. And a dual reservoir. I put a fan shroud on it and a 4-core radiator. I think a a 6-blade fan. This car was having heating issues, so with some of those changes, it cooled it right down. And going along with another GT item, GT theme, put some fog lamps on it. Again, just another appearance item, something that I like, so I accessorized it that way, just for personal taste. So it came with the stout steel wheels on it when I purchased it, and I like those, so I've just kept them. This engine is not a 289 as it would have had originally, so the badge right there, 302, reflects accordingly. This motor's been kind of Mod Podge together, really, in a way. It's the motor that was in the car when I bought it, but I changed the intake manifold and put those valve covers and different carburation on it, and a few things, but I've really left the base motor what it was when I bought it. I mean, it's been gone through and machined to fit good clearances and everything, but it really is what it was when I bought it, for the long block sake of things. So it's a lot of fun to take the top down and go for rides up in the canyons close to my house during the summer. So move on to the last car here, lastly but certainly not least, is this 67 Candy Apple Red Hardtop. My father-in-law bought this car brand new in January of 1967, and it remained in the family throughout the whole time. And so when the opportunity presented itself to get it from another family member, my wife and I jumped on it, and it was in pretty rough shape. It had been off the road since 1982, I believe, and it was rotted out. It had had some cats living in it, and there was a dead mouse under one of the seats when we were tearing into it, and it was just an overall mess. And honestly, I don't believe that this car would have been restored by most people. It's another C-code car. Did not really have many options to speak of. It was a fairly base model car, aside from not being a 6-cylinder. It's a V8 car, but it for sentimental value reasons was worth our time to bring it back and restore it. We tried to keep it looking real similar to how it did when my father-in-law bought it brand new, right down to even this window sticker here in the windshield that we found somebody online that reproduces them. It actually had these side stripes on it in an old photograph that my father-in-law had put these stripes on it, or similar stripes on it, like you'd see on the GT models, just because that was something that he liked the appearance of, and so in the restoration process we put some stripes back on it. It actually has down here the original dealer emblem from back in the day, so I polished that back up and reinstalled it after everything is said and done. Some changes that were made is, like for instance, these the stud steel wheels originally came with just hubcaps on it. Another disc brake conversion car. I really believe in good braking, upgrading the braking system, so that was something else we did. The interior is pretty much stock, other than a aftermarket little hump hugger console, and you can see that it's got a AM radio in there, but in the glove box it has a CD player with a auxiliary hookup for iPods and that sort of thing. And like the convertible, it has floating speakers on the back seat so that those can come out. And this has been to a few shows. It was at the Las Vegas track for the 50th anniversary of the Mustang in 2014. That was kind of fun to drive it down there and do a 1,200-mile road trip with the car. That's quite a way to put a car to the test after a restoration. is to put it on a road trip like that, and it performed quite well. There weren't any complaints or any grievances that I had with the car. So for the most part, here it sits since, though. These cars do get out a little bit, but I guess I'm just a little nervous. I'm taking them out too much, and I just enjoy having them in the garage, really, and sitting over. And here I've got a little mock-up of a oldies diner that I like to have that jukebox playing and sit at the counter, maybe chomp down on some food and kick back and relax and enjoy the fruits of the labors over the years. Thanks again for watching.